As an emissary for the divine, doing one's best to walk the straight and narrow path and enlighten the rest of the collective and coming together and creating and building our own oasis. It's been met with a lot of challenges and turmoil. Over a year ago, while I was gaining the clarity I needed on my divine path and mission with what my purpose was, and creating and building that bond and connection with my spirit team and guides, I was utilizing the services in and around the local community that assisted those who were in isolation or in transition, homelessness, the local churches and community centers that provided services such as mail services to collect your mail or documentation such as IDs and birth certificates and social security cards. And these places provided what appeared to be a safe haven for you to come and retrieve your documentation and, utilize the services and, food stamps and things of that nature. And they would provide snacks and, um, hygiene kits and things of that nature. One of the local um, independent churches group would come visit or frequent one of the main churches and provide coffee and lemonade and bagels. And I remember standing in line like everyone else. And I remember on this particular day, because they came twice a week, and this particular day I stood in line like everybody else and waited to go up front. And I, asked for my lemonade and I received a bagel. And I remember being grateful for these services being provided. The only thing is, I had to remember that my circumstances was much different than everybody else's. At that time, especially over a year ago, going back towards that time, I was heavily stalked and pursued and harassed on a daily basis around the clock by this unhinged criminal network of bullies, clowns, stalkers, con artists, thieves, actors, and pretenders, spiritual haters, and seemingly everyone in the community, at least 9 out of 10 people, seemingly were participating, even the individuals and volunteers who worked at these various community centers and charities and shelters and churches. Everyone was pulling out their phones so eagerly, pointing it to either record to the group chat or to utilize these harmful frequencies. Nowadays, it's more or less the sleepy frequencies, but then it was the frequencies that was absolutely meant to attempt to maim and hurt and cause internal damages. But around that time, when I stood in line to get my lemonade and my bagel, even though the environment then was way more intrusive in individuals invading my personal space and boundaries and being over my shoulder and, wanting me to have my head on the swivel. And they still, attempt to invade my personal space and boundaries now, energetic boundaries. But this group was definitely more comfortable being unhinged then. I remember drinking the lemonade, and they also had coffee available. And I remember feeling a eerie, uncomfortable discomfort. It was a feeling as if someone had placed something in my drink. And I knew at that moment somebody did slip something in my drink. I remember thinking about the faces and who would frequent and who would be around and who was recording and pulling out the phone. And I remember Spirit and my spirit team confirming at the time that it was the tall man lady, the one with the dreads and the flat backside, who was there seemingly, um, pretending to be a pastor or a reverend, a person of upright status. And I had confirmed with Spirit whether or not this person was the individual who placed the poison inside my drink. And Spirit had confirmed yes. And I remember feeling disappointed that these individuals would stoop that low and go to this extent in trying to harm me and stop me in order to get a payout, in order to relinquish stolen monies and inheritances that didn't belong to them. And I remember feeling disappointed that so many people in the community that's supposed to be trusted in upright positions, positions of authority, positions of honor and of stature, prestigious positions, would stoop so low to participate. And then I had to remind myself that this is in fact a demonic coven who hide behind religious institutions and fraternities, whose mission statement is to take good men and make them better, or we're a church without borders, a church without walls, and will actually go through the theatrics of prayer and holding hands and giving the appearance that they're really walking with the Most High. And my brothers and sisters in the high realms, it really, you know, took me for a loop that so many people in the community had weaseled their way into these various churches and institutions and organizations and charities. And they belong to a sinister, corrupt criminal organization, a demonic cult and coven in plain sight while holding these titles and positions. And I remember feeling a little bit woozy. That's expected. I mean, considering poison was slipped in my drink, my lemonade, and you know, I remember understanding my connection with the gods and angels of death forming and coming online and being, more understood by myself. And the fact that they were too were my guardians and protectors and royal blood and family members. And so what was meant to happen did not happen. What was meant to take place did not take place. And it would be even over a year later where the God of death himself said, anyone who tries to take you out and remove you from your destined path, your glory and your purpose, all of them will go before you do. The one who slipped something in my drink, the tall, flat backside man woman with the dreads who just a couple weeks ago was recording me when I seen her again. She had disappeared for a while and I didn't see her for a while. And some of the characters and people who was a part of the group, I haven't been in a while, but I haven't seen, all of the people that used to come at least over a year ago. But some of the other main characters still come. And, you know, she wasn't the only one. When I stayed at Atlanta Mission Shelter, men's shelter, those who worked in the kitchen also placed poison in my food. And I remember the tall guy with the braids, the dreads himself, working in the kitchen. And I remember him all of a sudden abruptly stopped working in the kitchen. And I checked with my spirit team. I had similar eerie, discomfort feelings eating that food and noticing the faces and the same characters who were stalking me in the street around town started infiltrating the shelters, and they were recruited as flying monkeys, a part of the same criminal network and demonic cult and coven. And I remember these people coming off the street and being able to weasel themselves directly into the kitchen and having kitchen duties. And I remember being concerned that, wow, maybe the same thing will repeat itself. And sure enough, eating that food over there several times, I've experienced these devils and hating as devils place poison in my food there as well. And feeling the similar woozy discomfort, but grateful that it wasn't the desired outcome. I realized by checking with my spirit team yet again, had they done or repeated the same act, the vile, disgusting, diabolical, malicious act of slipping something in my food. And spirit had confirmed, my spirit team confirmed, yes. I did ask if it was the tall dude with the dreads who pretended to be cool with me, and they said no. But he was aware of who did it, and it was done several times. Like I said, he stopped working in the kitchen. He didn't commit the act of putting it in my food, but my spirit team said that he is absolutely aware of who did. And, you know, this continued on, these vile, malicious, diabolical acts amongst this criminal network, committing all type of hate crimes. these biased individuals, spiritual haters. It's a hate crime to attack somebody because of their spiritual practices and their spiritual acts, and one who's minding their business and living their life to the best of their ability. These are all hate crimes on top of all the other federal crimes. And these are the same criminal networks that FedEx, Ground, and Kennesaw Marietta 305 allowed to infiltrate and park in the newly uh, cemented parking lot at the time, where the same cars and vehicles that had been stalking me in Gwinnett County ended up in Cobb County, had been stalking me on my nightly dedicated run, was, turning, the wee hours in the morning into rush hour. And we know most normal people at home sleep with their families. It's normally, and it used to be, that it's a ghost town out there in the wee hours. But this same criminal network and demonic coven, unhinged, without checks and balances, and comfortable by way of their corrupt buddies in the justice system participating and covering them, turned the wee hours in the morning into rush hour on the interstates, as if it was the middle of the day, as if it was traffic or construction taking place. And so that in itself was abnormal. So, FedEx allowed them to infiltrate and weasel their way into the company. Then I remember various truck drivers being recruited, and all of a sudden you have truck drivers behind the wheels of the trucks on the other side of the wall entering in the gate. That's a part of this criminal network and organization. And even when I traveled over the road, various companies and trucks would be participating in having harmful equipment. The reason why they pace themselves in front of you and slow down and drive at a snail's pace, abnormal driving, or drive to catch up to you and hang out on the side of you in close proximity, or hang out directly behind you, tailgating. All of these things took place in plain sight for anyone with eyes to see. Anyone could see what was taking place. It was all abnormality. And so this group, desperate. At first, it was, the intention was to remove me to be able to cover up the crimes they committed. Then they realized I hold special energy. Then the intention became, we need to harvest this energy. We need to gain his energy at all costs. These devils don't care how they get your attention, good or bad. They just want your attention. So they send all their recruits, their sellouts, their flying monkeys, their clowns, their soulless vessels to stalk, to be in close proximity. Nowadays, they mainly focus on the sleepy frequencies. I guess, they want me slowed down and distracted. The other day, which was yesterday, they sent in two flying monkeys to create a loud noise campaign and to smoke drugs around me and watch me from their motorbikes in the mirror, while they intentionally was trying to gain my attention and distract me from my prayer and meditation and my spiritual practices. Again, more federal hate crimes in plain sight taking place. No checks and balances. These devils are unhinged in their disrespect of my personal space and energetic boundaries. And they wonder why the backlash that they was warned would happen if they didn't shut it down would take place is happening. These devils are the type you cannot reason with because they don't listen to logic and reasoning. They keep trying to win at all costs and force their will. They don't even respect and acknowledge creation and existence existed before them and gave birth to them, and that's the reason they exist. And the reason why they will be dissipated and removed from all existed forevermore because of their stubbornness and disrespect and disregard for higher power and authority. And so they go out of their way to disrespect ancient royal bloodlines, rising up forces and powerful advanced beings whom are very displeased and will not tolerate the dishonor and the disrespect. And yet they were warned many times, given extended mercies, extended grace, extended warnings, and these dummies, these devils, these haters chose to ignore it and laugh or just stay in a state of delusion and denial. And now that the things that's taking place behind the scenes that they believe I don't know about or should know about or don't want me to know about, which should not be their concern. Their concern should be putting their affairs in order, getting right, attempting, well, at this point it's too late. But their concern should have been repenting and fixing what they broke and what they made wrong, confessing, as they were warned over a year ago, over 2 years ago. The only way through and out of this situation is to confess and tell the truth and fix what you broke and what you made wrong. These idiots and devils, conceited, stuck up, arrogant fools, believe that they could keep commissioning and paying for spell work, believe that they could use their charm and their looks, their conceitedness, to make a narrow escape and work their way through by way of gaslighting, breadcrumbing, love bombing, and that couldn't be further from the truth. They were told that retribution and judgment would come, and that there was nothing they could do to stop it, and that there was no one of their corrupt buddies that could help them. But they themselves would also need salvation, help, and assistance. Their titles and their positions mean nothing as it pertains to the realms of the spirit world and the ancestors and the angels and the ancient overseers. And now they're beginning to learn this lesson, that just because you have an opinion and a biasness, and just because you're a hater and a devil and stubborn, doesn't mean you get to force your will when there are more advanced, powerful forces and destined path that supersede your stubborn stupidity. And so now we're here. And so now they'll see for themselves what they thought wasn't real. They thought karma wasn't real, retribution, redemption, reciprocity, universal law and principles. But now they see beyond a shadow of a doubt that everything they coveted and everything they loved is being taken, snatched, pulled, be it material, health, their beauty, their nails, their hair, whatever they covet over the divine and respect and honor is what is they're absolutely going to lose and are losing in the moment. Not because anybody wished it upon them, but because they chose not to adhere to the warnings, and they chose not to stop. They chose not to shut it down. They chose to keep going by way of arrogance and ego, pride, jealousy, envy, stubbornness, and all the spell work that they commissioned and paid for. Death magic, poverty spells, sickness spells, glamour spells, beauty spells, gluttony spells. They want me to overeat. I'm very conscious of when I eat and when I exercise and when I'm motivated and when I'm not. And even if I do get off track, I know how to get back on track. So what? If I choose to snack a little bit, I know how to get back on track. I'm very aware. But they pay for gluttony spells. They pay for distractions and flying monkeys and idiots to pop up around you when they see you praying and meditating and start blasting loud music and start lighting up. You know, I don't even call it reefer or marijuana, because this stuff is synthetic and it stink. I don't know what these people is ingesting, because it's not even, authentic. So these idiots come around you and they light this stuff and then they smoke this stuff and they play the all for distractions and disturbances, which also is the reason why they're reaping what they sow, receiving karma. Because you can't disrespect a person's prayer and meditation and personal space and boundaries intentionally, being disrespectful, attempting to block my creativity, my creative flow, ability to be peaceful, not bothering anybody. They want to play God in my life and other innocent souls' lives and block them from creating. And they say, no, you don't create, but let us have your energy, like damn idiots. And this is the reason why they're reaping what they sow. And my spirit team wanted me to deliver this message. And so here it is. My energy is my energy. My divine path, purpose is mine. I work alone with the divine until I am given the blessings, the gifts, and the reward of a divine partner who is courageous and wise and ready to take up this mantle, especially if she is ready to communicate without fear or traumatized with, hang-ups of not receiving enough love and making excuses of why a divine union contract is something that they are not willing to accept at this moment. And believe me, that's fine. Whomever, I've made several offers, and whoever is not willing to communicate will not be considered at all. So if I made the offer and I was ghosted or they didn't respond, there's no hard feelings, there's no malice, nothing. It's fine. I know for me, I will not tolerate anyone making excuses over communicating because I take leaps of faith and communicate. If my spirit team gives me permission to communicate and reach out, I do so. If I'm reaching out to a person and they choose to ghost me, that's their choice. It's fine. Leave it where it's at. Only thing I ask is don't join these demonic cults and covens and work against me because you will be stripped of your spiritual gift. That will be the least of your worries and problems. So um, my divine path and my divine energy, golden healing energy is mine. It's not for demonic cults and covens. It's to build and create this oasis for these future star seeds and earth angels. It's to bring soul tribe together, those who are willing to set aside unhealthy ego and pride and arrogance and work together in divine love and divine unity. It is to help usher in these angels to initiate and meet us in person and work with us as they did in times of old when they set up their secret mystery schools and sacred schools, such as Archangel Michael, Melchizedek, Melchizedek, the high priest, ancient mystic order of Melchizedek,